What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to another chapter. Teacher Dave returns. Now, chapter 7 Mudbloods and Murders. We got a headache, so I'm just going to read this straight through. Hopefully, y'all read what it says and travel it. Harry spent a lot of time over the next few days dodging out of sight whenever he saw Gilderoy Lockhart coming down the corridor. Harder to avoid was Colin Creevy, who seemed to have memorized Harry's schedule. Nothing seemed to give Colin a bigger thrill than to say, "All right, Harry." 6 or 7 times a day to hear, "Hello, Colin," back. However exasperated Harry sounded when he said it. Headway was still angry with Harry about the disastrous car journey. Ron's wand was still malfunctioning, surpassing itself on Friday morning by shooting out of Ron's hand in charms and hitting tiny old Professor Flitwick squarely between the eyes, creating a large, throbbing green boil where it had struck. So, with one thing and another, Harry was quite glad to reach the weekend. He, Ron, and Hermione were planning to visit Hagrid on Saturday morning. Harry, however, was shaken awake several hours earlier than he would have liked by Oliver Wood, captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. "What's the matter?" said Harry groggily. "Quidditch practice. Come on." Harry squinted at the window. There was a thin mist hanging across the pink and gold sky. Now that he was awake, he couldn't understand how he could have slept through the racket of purple blanket. "Oliver," Harry croaked. "It's the crack of dawn." "Exactly," said Wood. He was a tall and burly 60, and, at the moment, his eyes were gleaming with a crazed enthusiasm. "It's part of our new training program. Come on, grab it, bro, and let's go," said Wood heartily. "None of the other teams have started training yet. We're going to be first off the mark this year." Yawning and shivering slightly, Harry climbed out of bed and tried to find his Quidditch robes. "Good man. Meet you on the field in 15 minutes. When he found his scarlet team robes and pulled on his cloak for warmth, Harry scribbled a note to Ron explaining where he'd gone and went down the spiral staircase to the common room, leaning the Misty Dazzle on his shoulder. He had just reached the portrait hole when he heard a clatter behind him. Colin Creevy came dashing down the spiral staircase, his cannon swinging madly around his neck, and something clutched in his hair. "Hey, welcome in. Who's ever here?" "I heard someone saying your name on the stairs, Harry. Look what I've got here. I've had it developed. I want to show you." Harry looked amusedly at the photograph Colin was brandishing under his nose. A moving black and white Lockhart was tugging hard on an arm Harry recognized as his own. He was pleased to see that his photographic self was putting up a good fight and refusing to be dragged into view. As Harry watched, Lockhart gave up and slumped, panting, against the white edge of the picture. "Will you sign it?" said Colin eagerly. "No," said Harry flatly, glancing around to check that the room really was deserted. "Sorry, Colin. I'm in a hurry. Quidditch practice." He climbed through the portrait hole. "Oh, wow. Wait for me. I've never watched a Quidditch game before." Colin scrambled through the hole after him. "It'll be really boring," Harry said quickly. The caller ignored him, his face shining with excitement. "You were the youngest house player in 100 years, weren't you, Harry? Weren't you?" said Colin, trotting alongside him. "You must be brilliant. I've never looked. Is it easy? Is that your room? Is that the best one there is?" Harry didn't know how to get rid of him. It was like having an extremely talkative shadow. "I don't really understand Quidditch," said Colin breathlessly. "Is it true that there are 4 balls and 2 of them fly around trying to knock people off their brooms?" "Yes," said Harry heavily, resigned to explaining the complicated rules of Quidditch. "They're called bludgers. There are 2 beaters on each team who carry clubs that beat the bludgers away from their side. Fred and George Weasley are the Gryffindor beaters. And very good ones, if I might personally add. Uh, and what are the other balls for? Colin asked, tripping down a couple of steps because he was giving open mouth to Harry. Well, the quaffle, that's the biggest red one, is the one that scored the goals. 3 chasers on each team throw the quaffle to each other and try to get it through the goalpost at the end of the pitch. There are 3 long posts with hoops on it. And the fourth ball is a golden snitch, said Harry. And it's very small, very fast, and difficult to catch. But that's what the seekers got to do, because the game of Quidditch doesn't end until the snitch has been caught. And whichever team secret gets the snitch earns his team an extra 150 points. And you're the Gryffindor seeker, aren't you? They call him all. Yes, said Harry, as they left the castle and started across the dew-drenched grass. There's the keeper, too, who guards the goalpost. That's it, really. But Colin didn't stop questioning Harry all the way down, slipping down to the Quidditch field. And Harry only shook him off when he reached the changing rooms. Colin called after him in a piping voice, "I'll go and get a good seat, Harry." And hurried off to the stands. The rest of the Gryffindor team were already in the changing room. Oh, yeah, I said already. All righty. Damn country accent slipping in through me. Ruh-roh. The rest of the Gryffindor team were already in the changing room. Wood was the only person who was truly awake. Fred and George Weasley were sitting, puffy-eyed and tousled hair, kind of like my hair, next to fourth-year Alicia Spinnet, who seemed to be nodding off so far behind her. Her fellow chasers, Katie Bell and Angelina Johnson, were yawning side by side, opposite them. "There you are, Harry. What kept you?" said Wood briskly. "Now, I wanted a quick talk with you all before we actually get onto the field. I spent the summer devising a whole new training program, which I really think will make all the difference." Wood was holding up a large diagram of Quidditch field, on which were drawn many lines, arrows, and crosses in many different coordinates. He took out his wand, tapped the board, and the arrows began to wiggle over the diagram like caterpillars. As Wood launched into a speech about his new tactics, Fred Weasley's head dropped onto Alicia Spinnet's shoulder, and he began to snore. Fred. The first board took nearly 20 minutes to explain, but there was another board under that, and a third one under that. Harry sank into a stupor as Wood droned on down. So, said Wood at long last, jerking Harry from a wistful fantasy about what he could be eating for breakfast at this very moment up at the castle. "Is that clear? Any questions?" "I've got a question, Oliver," said George, who had woken with a start. "Why couldn't you have told all of this yesterday, when we were all awake?" Wood wasn't pleased. "Now listen here, you what?" he said, glaring at them all. "We should have won that Quidditch Cup last year. We're easily the best team. But unfortunately, owing to circumstances beyond our control." Harry shifted guiltily in his seat. He had been unconscious in the hospital wing for the previous match of the previous year, or a final match of the previous year, meaning that Gryffindor had been a player short and had suffered the worst defeat in 300 years. "Yeah, okay, right there, Wood. Don't be making Harry feel like a little dick, man. He was saving the fucking wizarding world from Lord fucking Voldemort, okay? So if you can ease up off your high horse, only saving the wizarding world, a little game of quiz, man. I'm just saying." Wood took a moment to regain control of himself. The last defeat was still clearly torturing. So this year, we trained harder than before, ever before. Okay, let's go and put our new theories into practice, Wood chatted, seizing his broomstick and leading the way out of the locker rooms. Stiff-legged and yawning, and still yawning, his team followed. They had been in the locker room so long, but the sun was up completely now. Hollow remnants of mist hung over the grass in the stadium. As Harry walked onto the field, he saw Ron and Hermione sitting in the stands. "Aren't you finished yet?" called Ron incredulously. "Haven't even started," said Harry, looking jealously at the toast and marmalade. "Teaching us new moves." So what is marmalade? Is marmalade like orange juice or something? I've never seen, I've never gotten into anybody's refrigerator and seen anything to marmalade. Although it could just be a British word for a British drink. Wood's been teaching us new moves. He mounted his broomstick and kicked at the ground, soaring up into the air. The cool morning air whipped his face, waking him far more effectively than Wood's warm talk. Felt wonder back on the Quidditch field. He soared around the stadium at full speed, racing Fred and George. "What's that funny clicking noise?" called Fred as they hurtled around the corner. Harry looked into the stands. Thorne was sitting in one of the highest seats, his camera raised, taking picture after picture. The sound strangely magnified in the deserted stadium. "Look this way, Harry! This way!" he called shrilly. "Who's that?" said Fred. "No idea," Harry lied. "Oh, that's funny." Harry's like, "I don't know who that is." Harry lied, putting on a spurt of speed that took him as far away as possible from the column. "What's going on?" said Wood, frowning, as he skimmed through the air toward them. "Why is that first year taking pictures? I don't like it. It could be a Slytherin spy. Trying to find out about our new training program." "He's in Gryffindor," said Harry quickly. "And the Slytherins don't need a spy, Oliver," said George. "What makes you say that?" said Wood testily. "Because they're here in person," said George, pointing. Several people in green robes were walking onto the field, broomsticks in their hands. "Well, all right. Well, I appreciate you staying in as long as you did." "I don't believe it," Wood hissed in outrage. "I booked the field for today. Well, I'll see about this." Wood shot toward the ground, landing rather harder than he meant to in his anger, staggering slightly as he dismounted. Harry, Fred, and George followed. "What?" Wood bellowed at the Slytherin captain. "What are you doing here?"
It's almost like that they are in it.
"What?" Wood bellowed at the Slytherin captain. "It's our practice time. We got it specially. You can clear off now." Just clicking on my own video chat. "You can clear off now." Marcus Flint was even larger than Wood. He had a look of a trollish cunning on his face as he replied, "Plenty of room for all of us, Wood." Angelina, Alicia, and Katie had come over too. There was no girls on Slytherin team, who stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the Gryffindors, leering to a man. "But I booked the field," said Wood, positively spitting with rage. "I booked it." "Ah," said Flint. "But I've got a specially signed note here from Professor Snape. Oh, Professor S. Snape, give the Slytherin team permission to practice today on the Quidditch field owing to the need to train the new seeker." You've got any secret? So Wood distracted. Where? And from behind the six large figures behind them came a seventh, smaller boy, smirking all over his pale, pointed face. It was Draco Malfoy. Aren't you Lucius Malfoy's son? Said Fred, looking at Malfoy with dislike. Funny, we should mention Draco's father, said Flint as the whole Slytherin team smiled somewhat proudly. Let me show you the generous gift he's made to the Slytherin team. All seven of them held out their broomsticks. Seven highly polished, brand new handles, and seven sets of fine, gold-lettered, spelling the words Nimbus 2001, gleamed under the Gryffindors' noses in the early morning sun. The very latest motto, only came out last month, said Flint carelessly, flicking a speck of dust from the end of his own. I glittered it up to the old 2000 series by considerable amount. Much where the old thing sleeps. He smiled nastily at Fred and George, who were both clutching clean sweep fives. Sleeps the board with them. None of the Gryffindor team could think of anything to say for a moment. Malfoy was smirking so broadly, his cold eyes were reduced to slits. Oh, look, said Flint. A field invasion. Ron and Hermione were crossing the grass to see what was going on. What's happening? Ron asked Harry. Why aren't you playing? And what's he doing here? He was looking at Malfoy, taking in his Slytherin Quidditch robes. I'm the new Slytherin Seeker, Weasley, said Malfoy smugly. I've once just been admiring the brooms my father's bought our team. Ron gasped, open mouthed, at the seven superb broomsticks in front of him. Good, aren't they? Said Malfoy smoothly. But perhaps the Gryffindor team will be able to raise some gold and get new brooms too. You could raffle off those King's Fives. I expect a museum will bid for them. Damn, I can't get my Malfoy voice right this time around. Sorry, Chet. The Slytherin team howled with laughter. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had a die that way in, said Hermione sharply. They got on pure account. The smug look on Malfoy's face flickered. No one asked your opinion. Just a little mumbler, he spat. Harry knew at once that Malfoy had said something really bad, because there was an instant uproar at his words. Flint had to dive in front of Malfoy to stop Fred and George jumping on him. Alicia shrieked, How dare you! And Ron plunged his hand into his robes and pulled out his wand, yelling, You pay for that one, Malfoy! And pointed it furiously under Flint's arm at Malfoy's face. A loud bang echoed around the stadium, and a jet of green light shot out of the wrong end of Ron's wand, hitting him in the stomach and sending him reeling backward onto the grass. Ron! Ron! Are you all right? Squealed Hermione. Ron opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he gave an almighty belch, and several slugs dribbled out of his mouth onto his lap. The Slytherin team were paralyzed with laughter. Flint was doubled up, hanging on to his new broomstick for support. Malfoy, on all fours, banging the ground with his fist. That's funny, I'm sorry. Even I'm laughing a little bit. The Gryffindors were gathered around Ron. He kept belching large, glistening slugs. Nobody seemed to want to touch him. We'd better get him to Hagrid's. It's nearest, said Harry to Hermione, who nodded bravely. And the pair of them pulled Ron up by the arms. What happened, Harry? What happened? Is he ill? But you can carry him, can't you? Colin had run down from his seat and now dancing alongside them as they left the field. Ron gave a huge heave, and more slugs strolled down his front. Oh! Said Colin, fascinated, raising his camera. Can you hold him still, Harry? Get out of the way, Colin! Said Harry angrily. He and Hermione supported Ron out of the stadium and across the grounds towards the edge of the forest. Nearly there, Ron, said Hermione, as the gamekeeper's cabin came into the view. You'll be all right in a minute. Almost there. They were within 20 feet of Hagrid's house. House. More like a hut, but okay, whatever. Within 20 feet when they opened the door, but it wasn't Hagrid who emerged. Gilderoy Lockhart, wearing robes of palest mauve today, came striding out. Quick! Behind here! Harry hissed, dragging along behind a nearby bush. Hermione followed, somewhat reluctantly. Simple matter if you know what you're doing, Lockhart was saying loudly to Hagrid. If you need help, you know where I am. I'll leave a have I'll let you have a copy of my book. I'm surprised you haven't already got one. I'll sign one tonight and send it over. Well, goodbye. And he strode away toward the castle. Harry waited until Lockhart was out of sight. Ooh, damn, Jack, my stomach is a grumbling. They knocked urgently. Hagrid appeared at once, looking very grumpy, but his expression brightened when he saw who it was. Been wondering when you'd come down to see me. Come in, come in. Thought you might have been Professor Lockhart back again. Harry and Hermione supported Ron over the threshold into the one-room cabin. Okay, it's a cabin. I'm sorry, not a excuse me. Which had an enormous bed in one corner, a fire cracking merrily in the other. Ron Hagrid didn't seem perturbed by Ron's slow problem, which Harry hastily explained as he lowered Ron into a chair. Better out than in, he said, cheerfully, honking the large copper basin in front of him. Get 'em all up, Ron. I don't think there's anything to do except for wait till it stops, said Hermione anxiously, watching Ron bend over the basin. That's a difficult curse to work out at the best of times. But with a broken wand, Hagrid was bustling around making them tea. His boarhound, Fang, was slobbering over Harry. You know, I'm sorry, but Lockhart reminds me of like a male Mrs. Weasley. He's very kind and gentle. His boarhound thing was slobbering over Harry. What did Lockhart want with you, Harry? Harry asked, scratching Fang's ears. Give him your advice on how to get. Give him your advice on getting cookies out of a well, growled Hagrid, moving a half-cooked rooster off his scrubbed table, setting down his teapot. Like I don't know, banging on about some banshee he banished. If one word of it was true, I'll eat my kettle. It was most unlike Hagrid to criticize the Hogwarts teacher. Harry looked at him in surprise. Hermione, however, said in a voice somewhat higher than usual, I think you're being a bit unfair. Professor Dumbledore obviously thought he was the best man for the job. He was the only man for the job, said Hagrid, offering them a plate of treacle toffee, which Ron while Ron coughed squelchily into his basin. And I mean the only one. Getting very difficult to find anyone for the dark arts job. People aren't too keen to take it on now. See, they're starting to think it's strengths. And that one's lasted long for a while now. So tell me, said Hagrid, jerking his head at Ron. Who was he trying to curse? Malfoy called Hermione something. It must have been really bad, because everyone went wild. It was bad, cleared Ron hoarsely, emerging out of the tabletop, looking pale and sweaty. Malfoy called him mudblood, Hagrid. Ron dived out of sight again as a fresh wave of slugs made their appearance. Hagrid looked outraged. He didn't, he growled at Hermione. He did, she said, but I don't know what it means. I doubt it was very rude, of course. What's about the most insulting thing you can think of? Gasped Ron, coming back up. Mudbloods are really fouling for someone who's muggle-born. Non-magic parents. There are some wizards, like the Malfoys family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood. He gave a small burp. A single slug fell into his outstretched hand, and he threw it into the basin and continued. I mean, the rest of us, no, it doesn't make any difference at all. Look at Neville Longbottom. He's pure blooded. He can part of standard cauldron the right way up. I got a point. And I haven't invented a spell our Hermione can't do, said Hagrid, proudly making Hermione good, a brilliant shade of magenta. It's a disgusting thing to call someone, said Ron, wiping his sweaty brow with his shaking hand. Dirty blood, see? Common blood, it's ridiculous. Most wizards these days are half blood anyway. We hadn't married mothers, we'd have died out. He rushed and ducked outside again. Well, I don't blame you for trying to curse him, Ron, said Hagrid loudly with thuds and more slugs hitting the basin. But maybe it's a good thing your wand backfired. Spit Lucius Malfoy would have come up marching up to school and cursed his son. At least you're not in trouble. Harry would have pointed out that trouble didn't come much worse than having slugs pouring out of your mouth. But he couldn't. Hagrid's treacle toffee had cemented his jaws together. Harry, said Hagrid, abruptly as though struck by a sudden thought. Got a bone to pick with you. I've heard you've been giving out signed photos. How come I haven't gotten one? Furious, Harry wrenched his teeth apart. I have not been giving out signed photos, he said hotly. If Flockhart's still spreading that around, but then he saw that Hagrid was laughing. I'm only joking, he said, patting Harry gently on the back and sending him face first into the table. I knew you ain't hadn't really. I told Lockhart you ain't. You didn't need to. You're more famous than him without trying. Bet he didn't like that, said Harry, sitting up and rubbing his chin. Don't think he did, said Harry, his eyes twinkling. Then I told him I'd never read one of his books. Then he decided to go. Trickle toffee, Ron? He added as Ron reappeared. No thanks, said Ron Weasley. Better not risk it. Come and see what I've been growing, said Hagrid and Ron. Said Hagrid as Harry and Hermione finished off their tea. In the small vegetable patch behind Hagrid's house were a dozen of the largest pumpkins Harry had ever seen. Each was the size of a large boulder. Getting on well, aren't they? For the Halloween feast, said Hagrid happily. Should be big by then. What have you been feeding them? Said Harry. Hagrid looked over his shoulder, checked they were alone. Well, I've been giving them, a bit of help. Harry noticed Hagrid's flowery pink umbrella leaning against the back of the back wall of the cabin. Harry had no reason to believe, for now, that this umbrella was not all it looked. In fact, he had the strong impression that Hagrid's old school one was concealed inside it. Hagrid wasn't supposed to use magic. He had been expelled from Hogwarts in his third year, but Harry had never found out why. Any mention of the matter, and Hagrid was clear his throat loudly and become seriously deaf until the subject was changed. Good night, words return, I suppose, said Hermione, halfway between a disapproval and amusement. Well, you've done a good job on them. That's what your little sister said Hagrid, nodding at her Ron. You met her just yesterday, Hagrid looked sideways at Harry, his beard twitching. Sanchez just looking around the grounds. But I reckon she was hoping she might run into someone else at my house. He winked at Harry. If you asked me, she wouldn't say no to a sign. Oh, shut up, said Harry. Ron snorted with laughter, and ground sprayed with slugs. Watch it! Hagrid roared, pulling Ron away from his precious pumpkins. It was nearly lunchtime as Harry had only one bit of cheap toffee since dawn. He was keen to go back up to school to eat. They said goodbye to Hagrid and walked back up to the castle. Ron hiccuped occasionally, but only bringing up two very small slugs. They had barely set foot in the cool entrance hall when a voice rang out. Daddy-o, Potter, Wizarding? Professor McGonagall walking toward them, working still. You both do your detentions tonight? I deceived him. What are we doing, Professor? Said Ron nervously, passing the book. You were to be publishing the silver in the trophy room of Mr. Crouch, and no magic wizardry. Elbow grace. Ron gulped. Argus Filch, the caretaker, was loathed by every student in the school. And you, Potter, would be helping Professor Lockhart answer his fun now, said Professor McGonagall. Oh, no, Professor, can't I go into the trophy room too? Said Harry desperately. Certainly not, said Professor McGonagall, raising her eyebrows. Professor Lockhart requested you particularly. 8 o'clock sharp, both of you. Harry and Ron slouched into the great hall in a state of deepest gloom. Hermione behind them, wearing a "well, you did break the school rules" sort of expression. Harry didn't enjoy his shepherd's pie as much as he thought. Both he and Ron felt got the worst deal. That's what happened there all night, said Ron heavily. No magic. There must be something about like there must be about 100 cups in that room. I'm no good at muggle thing. I'd swap any time, said Harry haughtily. I've had loads of practice with the Daves-Raves. Answering Lockhart's fan mail? He'll be a nightmare. Saturday afternoon seemed to melt away, and, in what seemed like no time, it was 5 minutes to 8, and Harry was dragging his feet along the second floor corridor to Lockhart's office. He gritted his teeth and knocked. The door flew open at once, Lockhart beamed down at him. Ah, here's the scallywag. Come in, Harry, come in. Shining brightly on the walls by the light of many candles were countless framed photographs of Lockhart. He had signed a few of them. Another large pile lay on his desk. You can adjust the envelopes. Okay, so I thought he was just having Harry sign some forgery. Excuse me now. Lockhart told Harry, as though this was a huge treat. This first one's the Gladys Golden. Good Jan. Plus a huge fan of mine. The minutes nailed on. Harry let Lockhart's voice wash over him, occasionally saying, yeah, right, and yeah. Now and then he got a phrase like, Bane's a fickle friend, Harry, or celebrity is as celebrity does. Remember that. The candles burned lower and lower, making light dance over the many faces, moving faces of Lockhart watching him. Harry moved his aching hand over what felt like the thousandth envelope, writing out Veronica Smedley's address. It must be nearly time to leave, Harry thought miserably. Please let it be nearly time. And then he heard something. Something quite apart from the spitting of the dying candles and Lockhart's prattle about his fans. It was a voice to chill the bone marrow. a voice taking ice cold venom. Come, come to me. Let me help you. Let me tell you. Let me kill you. Harry gave a huge jump, and a large lilac block appeared on Veronica Smith's street. What? He said loudly. I know, said Walker. 6 solid months at the top of the bestseller list. Broke all records. No, said Harry frantically. That voice. Sorry, said Walker, looking puzzled. What voice? That that voice that said, didn't you hear it? Lockhart was looking at Harry in high astonishment. What are you talking about, Harry? Perhaps you're getting a little drowsy? Great Scott, look at the time. We've been here nearly 4 hours. I'd never believe it. I'd never have believed it. The time's flown, hasn't it? Harry didn't answer. He was straining his ears to hear the voice again. But there was no sound now except for Lockhart telling him he mustn't expect to treat like this every time he got detention. Feeling dazed, Harry left. It was so late that the Gryffindor common room was almost empty. Harry went straight up to the dormitory. Ron wasn't back yet. Harry pulled on his pajamas, got into his bed, and waited. Half an hour later, Ron arrived, nursing his right arm and bringing a strong smell of polish into the darkened room. My muscles have all seized up, he groaned, sinking onto his bed. 14 times he made me buff up that Quidditch cup before he was satisfied. And then I had another slug attack all over a special wards for services to the school. Took it ages to get the slime off. How was it with the Lockhart? Keeping his voice low, said Malfoy weak. Neville, Dean, and Seamus. Harry told Ron exactly what he had heard. Lockhart said he couldn't hear it, said Ron. Harry could see him frowning in the moonlight. Do you think he was lying? But I don't get it. Even someone invisible would have had to open the door. I know, said Harry, lying back into his four-poster and staring at the canopy above him. I don't get it either. All right, yeah, that concludes another reading stream from Daves-Raves. The next chapter will be chapter 8, the Death Day Party, and that's a long ass chapter. I gotta get me some food in me because I'm hungry. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. So if you guys like this video, read what that says. Subscribe once more in that notification bell. Oh yeah, make sure y'all smash that like button. Like. Hit that like button. And I will see you guys in my next video. When will it be? I have no idea. No idea when the next video will be. So ring the notification bell if you want to know every time I go live. Daves out. Peace.